What exactly is earnest money and why is it important to you? We're talking about that now on Speaking Frankly. My name is Frank Hunton and I am a realtor with Hunton Properties and Keller Williams Realty Partners in Woodstock, Georgia. And this is Speaking Frankly. There are several line items that a buyer is typically responsible for taking care of or paying during the home buying process. One of these is the earnest money deposit. What is this? How much is this? And how do you keep from losing it? Here are 3 things that you need to know about earnest money. The purpose of the earnest money deposit is simply to put some of the buyer's skin in the game. Now, when a buyer decides to purchase a home from a seller, both parties enter into the contract. But the contract doesn't necessarily obligate the buyer to go through with the sale in the end, because reports from the inspection and appraisal could come back later and reveal problems with the house. But it does obligate the seller to take the home off the market while all these other things are being done. So to prove to the seller that the buyer's offer is in good faith, an earnest money deposit is made. It's basically a promise to the seller, and it gives the buyer time to take care of all the things that need to be taken care of prior to closing. Now, once the deposit is made, it is usually held in an escrow account until closing, at which time it's usually applied to the down payment or the buyer's closing costs. While the earnest money deposit can be negotiated between buyer and seller, it typically ranges between 1 to 2% of the purchase price of the home. Other things that can affect this amount are the amount of interest shown by other potential buyers, how hot or cold a real estate market is at the given time, or how quickly the buyer can close the deal. In some markets, under some conditions, earnest money deposits may be as high as 5 to 10% of the sales price of the home. And while usually expressed as a percentage, some sellers might just want a fixed amount, say $5,000 or $10,000. Of course, the higher the amount of the earnest money, the more serious the seller is likely to consider a buyer. Therefore, a buyer should offer a high enough earnest money deposit to get accepted, but not so high as to put extra money at risk, because there is still a slight chance that the deal may not go through and the earnest money may not be refunded. Buyers can do several things to protect their earnest money deposits. Here are 3. First, make sure contingencies for things like financing and inspections are included in the initial contract. Without these contingencies, you run the risk of losing your deposit if your financing falls through for some reason or there's a huge defect with the house that's found later on. Next, read, understand, and abide by the terms and timelines in the contract. For example, if the contract states that the home inspection needs to be completed by a certain date, make sure that the home inspection is completed by that date, or you risk losing your deposit and possibly the house. Third, make sure that the money is handled appropriately. The deposit should be made to a reputable third party. In Georgia, this is typically one of the real estate brokers involved in the transactions, and less commonly, the closing attorney. In other places, it might be the escrow company, the title company, a broker, or an attorney. Never, I repeat, never give the earnest money deposit directly to the seller. Earnest money is a deposit that represents a buyer's good faith in a real estate transaction. It can be a percentage of the sales price, or it can be a fixed amount. And it's important to stick to the terms and timeline of the contract and make sure that you have contingencies in place to protect your right to the earnest money deposit should the contract fall through for any reason. My name is Frank Hunton, and I am a realtor with Hunton Properties and Keller Williams Realty Partners in Woodstock, Georgia. And this is Speaking Frankly. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, why not? Please do so now. Also, show us some love, give us a thumbs up below, and share this with as many people as possible. We really do appreciate your support. Thank you.